Uh-oh. Okay, we'll start with this. A look at this weekend's lightweight contest. Terry Harper versus Natalie Zimmerman. A return home for the champion. Terry Harper boxes Natalie Zimmerman on May 23rd in a WBO lightweight title clash as we take a look at this matchup. Harper, who is a three-weight world champion, makes the first defense of her title. She secured the title after beating then unbeaten Rhiannon Dixon, also champion, by way of a unanimous decision. Harper is not in the best form, having only won one of her last three fights. This included a majority draw against Cecilia Brækhus, who's in her early 40s, and a WBO welterweight title defeat to Sandy Ryan. Harper knows a win takes her closer to unifying titles against the likes of WBC lightweight champion and fellow Brit, Caroline Dubois. Zimmerman is undefeated with a record of 13-0. This is her first title fight as she enters into the bout following a successful 2024. With just 3 knockouts to her name, she will face a tough task to take a decision on the cards in Harper's backyard, since a knockout for Natalie isn't likely. That's the only way I can describe it. As a professional fighter in my career, I've experienced so much. This is really the cherry on top. I think it's every professional fighter's dream to headline a stadium in their own hometown, and I've got that. I'm grateful for GBM and everyone at the Echo Power giving me this opportunity. I'm grateful that I get to go out and have my first defense of my world title in front of my hometown crowd and the fans who have followed my career since the very beginning, through the highs and lows. It's going to be a special night for everyone involved, said the champion. Sort of a calm before the storm. This is a quick run out. I mean, even though Natalie Zimmerman is an unbeaten fighter, her quality of competition is largely pedestrian, and that tells you all you need to know about this fighter and this fight. That for Natalie Zimmerman, this is a huge step up in class, and her not being a knockout merchant as the away fighter, it doesn't help her plight. So in all likelihood, Terry is going to beat her. Terry will keep the WBO title, and it's not until after that things get interesting. There are calls for a Caroline Dubois unification match. Caroline, who said, Terry's from England, I'm from England, it's a domestic showdown, it makes sense, I don't see why not. Fight me. You're going to get beat, but you're going to get a big show. You're going to get a good payday. It's going to make it worthwhile. Oh, if only she had that same energy for Beatrice Ferreira. I do wonder what Terry's going to do after this Natalie Zimmerman fight that I expect her to win, because certain peril awaits. Whether it's a unification match with Caroline or Beatrice, I'm sorry to say, I don't think Terry wins either of those fights. Her best bet at a unification, a successful one, would have to be with Stephanie Hahn, but Stephanie's spoken for, and she's got a fight coming up. I think it's in July. Terry Harper, a 3-weight world champion, 28 years old, but very much a veteran, very much seasoned. She's won some fights, she's lost some fights, had some highs and lows, and I wonder that she's not nearing her retirement. Just have that feeling. Maybe it's because the next loss is right around the corner. It could be. After the Natalie Zimmerman fight, she's already been stopped by Alicia Baumgartner, stopped by Sandy Ryan. I don't see a lot of options at 135 for Terry to extend her boxing career. Not unless she goes up to 140 after Katie Taylor retires and maybe sees about becoming a champion there.
That would be her best bet, because if she stays at 135...
Already know who's going to be breathing down her neck. So this show is not a Matchroom show. It's not being promoted by them. It's being promoted by GBM, a well-to-do local promotional outfit in the United Kingdom. I wonder, is Terry not with Matchroom anymore? Is she the latest Valkyrie to leave the promotional outfit?
Alicia Baumgartner did, Ali Scottney did, and Ramla Ali.
So, I don't know that Terry still is with Matchroom. All I know is this is not a Matchroom promotion. In any event, I'm not expecting any surprises this weekend, this Friday. I expect Terry to keep the WBO title, and what comes after that?
Well, that's when things will get more interesting.
It wasn't necessarily that Devin was fighting off the back foot. He was running for the first 4, 5, 6 rounds of that fight. Now, when he held his feet, he would hurt Ramirez. But then he would go, but listen, but at the same time, he had a lot to overcome. So we're all very harsh in that respect, but, fighting like that, with that style, is going to turn a lot of people off. So, is it Ramirez's job to cut the ring off and have more success? Yeah. Was it Canelo's job to do that against Skull? Yeah. But it is very difficult when people are coming to fight so negatively.
There is a little bit more context to it than just that. If it were your run-of-the-mill card, a regular show, not a pay-per-view, not something that the consumer has to pay extra to see, then I suppose it would have been more permissible, though after a performance like that,
you're gonna then ask people to pay per view to see that same fighter.
It's really never a good time to lay an egg, is what I'm getting at, though sometimes are better than others. If this was an ordinary fight that didn't cost anything extra, and there weren't all these bells and whistles attached to it, then maybe it would have been alright. But there was a lot of hype about this card, and there was a lot of attention aimed towards Devin's ring return. How would he look?
How would he fight? Is he damaged goods?
We've been all through that. The damage is done. Bill Haney, Devin's father, recently made an appearance on the Boxing Voice with a grocery list of names, a hit list for Devin Haney.
That was a fluke on the 20th of April. Now, that's 1 and that's 10, so we got 8 other guys mixed in there. Boots is in there on at some capacity. Connor Ben is in there. Shakur Stevenson, Keyshawn Davis, Richard Hitchinson. You got Mario Barrios. You got Brian Norman. How many is that, Ness? Because I don't know if no team that came on and said that we have the equipment, we have the style.
It's a long list of names, but almost immediately, I would rule out Shakur Stevenson and Richardson Hitchens. I mean, can you imagine 2 cerebral boxers, 2 defensively minded fighters, neither one willing to take a chance? What do you think that fight's gonna look like?
Easter versus Bartholomew.
What do you think is gonna happen?
Not a lot. Got 2 guys in there whose sole focus is not making a mistake, and as a result, they're not going to take any chances. I do not want to see Haney versus Stevenson or Haney versus Hitchens. No gracias.
Haney versus Lopez really isn't much better because Lopez is a counter-puncher and Devin is a pure boxer. Pure boxer is not going to give the counter-puncher much to counter, so not much is going to happen. It'll look like the Prograis fight. And even though Devin won that fight emphatically, it wasn't exciting. Haney versus Barrios might be a bit more exciting because if nothing else, Mario Barrios would take chances. The problem is, Mario is spoken for. We all know what he's about to do. He's about to fight Manny. So, Haney versus Barrios, or Haney versus Brian Norman, Connor Ben, Keyshawn Davis, these would be exciting fights because the other guys are going to make it exciting. The problem for Devin, I'd say, is he doesn't have an incentive to get those guys in the ring. Short of Turkey Al Sheikh bankrolling the fight, Devin by himself
He doesn't provide an incentive. He's not so big a draw. He doesn't have so much marquee value. At 147, he doesn't have a belt.
He doesn't provide those fighters with an incentive to face him. The only one who could provide an incentive is Turki El Sheikh, and I'm wondering if he will, given what he got for his money in New York.
Not a lot.
So Bill Haney is doing the rounds, in so many words saying that they're willing to fight anybody and everybody. They better, because they're in a compromising position. You won your last fight, but your stock is not on the up and up.
They went as far as saying they'd fight Brian Norman. They'd fight Boots. The Boots fight is not realistic. He just mentioned him because he's there. Brian Norman, however...
That's more realistic?
Well, Brian's not about to leave the welterweight division for junior middle, like Boots might within the next calendar year. To my knowledge, Brian isn't struggling to get down to 147. He's headed to Japan. He's about to fight Jin Sasaki.
If he wins, stays WBO champion, they can then explore a Devin Haney fight.
Devin hits like a girl, so Brian is under no threat of being stopped, no threat of being knocked out, and Brian is a true welterweight as opposed to Devin, who moved up.
It's a little bit hard to say how well Devin's welterweight campaign is going to go because he didn't look good in his last fight, and that wasn't against the welterweight.
So what happens when it's time to fight one?
In men's heavyweight news, the question is asked, is Moses Itauma ready for the big fights? Moses Itauma takes on Mike Balogun this weekend on the undercard of Taylor versus Essuman. But is he ready for big-time boxing? Itauma knocked out Dempsey McKean in his last fight, which was his fourth stoppage of last year. That extended his undefeated record to 11-0 with 9 knockouts. That was the biggest win of Moses' career, as all eyes turn on whether or not he can get a title shot this year. The belts are currently occupied by Oleksandr Usyk and Daniel Dubois.
I don't think he fights for a title this year, and even if he could, I don't think he should.
Not when the best guy you ever beat is Dempsey McKean. Usyk holds the WBA, WBC, and WBO heavyweight titles. He faces Dubois, who holds the IBF, for the undisputed crown. A fight against either is risky, given Itauma's lack of experience in the paid ranks. However, Frank Warren has not ruled out Itauma facing Usyk this year. A win over Usyk would make him one of the youngest world champions in boxing at just 20. I think Itauma could fight for a world title this year, but who knows? He may fight him this year. Anything's possible. We've got to see what happens, but the thing is with Moses, I think within another fight or two, he's quite capable of being in exactly the same company as all these guys. Another fight or two is basically a calendar year.
Between the fight that he's about to have this weekend and 2 more later in the year, that's the year.
Another name who's been mentioned is Martin Bakole. Bakole was considered the bogeyman of the division after he knocked out Jared Anderson. Anderson was tipped as a future heavyweight champion, showing the magnitude of the win. Since then, Bakole's form has dipped. He was knocked out by Joseph Parker in a fight that he took on short notice. In hindsight, he had taken that fight without being prepared. Bakole followed that fight up with a majority draw against Efe Ajagba, in a bout where some felt he came out second best. Warren has earmarked Bakole as a possible opponent for Itauma. Not a bad shout.
A little bit risky.
1,000,000%. If you went and picked the phone up now and asked George, his son, and Shalom, who was there, I said that to Shalom. I said I'd do that fight in a heartbeat. And I also said to Lawrence Okoli, if you got caught by him, you should be arrested for loitering, Warren stated. There is a danger that Moses takes on too many challenges early on. Philippe Hrgovic discussed the possible fight against Moses, saying he would be happy to take on that challenge. Itauma won the ring's prospect of the year, as Hrgovic may fancy his chances against someone who is young but could be a world beater, thus boosting his resume. Hrgovic lost to Daniel Dubois before bouncing back with a unanimous decision win over Joe Joyce. Hrgovic was ready for this bout moving forward if the opportunity presented itself. And if not Philippe Hrgovic, what about the man Philippe just beat? What about Joe Joyce? Moses Itauma versus Joe Joyce.
You don't think Joe Joyce should retire?
Yeah, I might, but Joe doesn't. Joe wants to keep fighting, so put him in there with Moses. One side is skill, another is heart and chin. He's definitely done a great job until now, but yeah, let's do it. Just look at Jared Anderson. He looked good until he didn't. I'm more than happy having that fight. He's still young, and they need to be cautious matching him properly. Don't rush him too soon into some hard fights. We'll see if he has the heart of a warrior, says Hrgovic.
The whole point of pursuing world title honors so early in Moses' career is so that he can try and surpass Mike Tyson's record as the youngest heavyweight champion.
That's what that's all about, and I'm not sure, but I actually think that moment is past. Look, Moses is young, so there's no need to rush him into anything. If you have time, it's better to use it. Develop him gradually. I would see about getting Moses fights with fighters that other guys have fought. Familiar faces like Jared Anderson fought Riyad Murhi. Get Moses Riyad Murhi. Because the stuff I'm hearing all sounds premature. Martin Bakole, world title honors before this year is out. Push him too soon. Push him too hard, you'll push him off a cliff. Look at what happened to Johnny Fisher at the hands of Dave Allen in both of their fights. And Johnny was looking good. Johnny was looking ready.
Stopped Alen Babic in one round. Put him in there with Dave Allen, and he immediately started to unravel. If you time this wrong.
And why are you acting like you're pressed for time when Moses is very young? It's a luxury that he has that some other fighters don't. He has time to be moved gradually.
I don't think Moses should be fighting for a title or looking to be fighting for a title anytime this year. Save that for the next one. For this one, just let him amass experience. Let him make his bones in the paid ranks.
Develop him. There's no need to rush. Get him a Charles Martin fight, a Pulev fight, if you can.
A Chris Lovejoy, Emmanuel Char, those kinds of guys that have been around, they've got some experience, but Moses won't be in over his head.
Elsewhere in the division, as it pertains to a career that's much further along than Moses Itauma's, reports indicate that Tyson Fury is set to unretire.
Much to no one's surprise, he announced his latest retirement in January of this year, but nobody's really surprised that he's coming back since he's done this multiple times throughout his career.
But if he is coming back, who is he going to fight? Because he's already been there and done that in the world title picture, the world title scene. He's built up his marquee value to where he doesn't need to be fighting for a belt to bring in a big audience.
Or a big check.
The heavyweight division is still in its infancy in what will be the absence of Fury, the absence of Anthony Joshua, and the absence of Alexander Usyk, the somebodies of the previous crop whose careers are now winding down. Yeah, Fury's coming back, but it's only momentarily.
It's not to run a gauntlet of unbeaten up-and-comers that are coming through.
It's gotta be for the Anthony Joshua fight that, depending on how it goes and how it's arranged, could be a multi-fight engagement. The latest on Anthony states that he won't be back until the very end of the year. Could that be for a Fury fight?
It's the only one I can imagine Fury having because it's still a big fight, still big in the UK. You can sell it.
And beyond that, I don't know what else Tyson Fury would be coming back for.